Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing myself absolutely shredding opponents with my new Shadow Greninja. After I uploaded a shoutcast of a trainer playing Shadow Greninja yesterday, I was so inspired that I wanted to try it out myself. And on my first Shadow Froakie Grunt, and only Shadow Froakie Grunt, I got very lucky. I got the rank 99 Ultra League Shadow Greninja, so I used my final Elite Charge TM to give it Hydreigon. And well, it was pretty unstoppable all day, as this team went 9-3. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, we're off to a good start picking up a winning lead, Shadow Greninja into Togekiss. Now it feels a little crazy to say a Dark type is a winning lead into a Fairy type, but that is the power of Shadow Greninja. Shadow Greninja does so much damage that in the 2 shield, you can farm them with Water Shurikens into a range where Hydreigon will KO. So for Greninja, I just simply don't have to switch out of this matchup. My opponent safe switches into a non-Shadow Dragonite, and unfortunately for them, we have a very strong answer to that, as in comes Galarian Weezing. Dragonite is incredibly spammy, being able to fire off Thunder Punches left and right, but Galarian Weezing is quite bulky. I'm able to withstand the damage and return fire with Sludge. Initially, I tried the first few games of the team with Overheat instead of Brutal Swing, but I quickly realized there's a lot of ghosts in this meta, and you really don't want to be walled if you get stuck in an endgame against Jellicent. So I switched over to Brutal Swing, and honestly, Brutal Swing was amazing. Brutal Swing consistently helped me win games. Psyshock is going to land, down goes Galarian Weezing, in comes Corviknight. My opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match, because they know nothing in the format wants to deal with the double Shadow Hydro Cannons I have loaded in the back. Hopping into the next match, we see an amazing lead Shadow Greninja into XL Spiritomb, and somehow the Spiritomb is not switching out. Hydro Cannon lands, that damage is just criminal, and my opponent accidentally throws on alignment, giving me an entire Water Shuriken for free. I'm just going to look to fully Water Shuriken down. My opponent safe switches into Licky Licky, so again I just get to bank 100 Shadow Greninja energy and then bring in Corviknight. Corviknight more than happy to shake off Shadow Ball after Shadow Ball. I know that one payback will not take the knockout here, so I'm going to fish for the Air Cutter boost. It's only a 30% chance, and I do not get it this time, but it is a little bit of chip damage, and everything helps when going up against the Pokemon as bulky as Licky Licky. I farm up to the payback, this time no baits, I just need to lock in some damage onto this Pokemon. Payback is going to land, getting Licky Licky low. Licky Licky actually ends up playing to a CMP tie here. I am not boosted, which means that an Air Cutter will not KO, but I do get the boost and a shield, so a bit of good luck does go my way. Shadow Ball takes the knockout, but I can bring back in Greninja and fire off the Night Slash. Night Slash, it's easily going to be knocking out the low health Licky Licky, and now I just have so much energy, and oh my goodness, in the back is Oranguru. This poor opponent is about to get ruthlessly swept by Shadow Greninja. Greninja just gets to spam out Night Slash after Night Slash after Night Slash. This energy advantage is just simply insurmountable. Shadow Night Slash, devastating damage. Oranguru with the 1 HP survive to make the Trailblaze. I'm going to shield, but the damage is already done. My opponent brings back in the Spiritomb. I don't even have to throw my energy because I know they were energy dry, so I can just Water Shuriken down and take the win. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, Shadow Greninja into Primeape. I safe switch into Corviknight, and my opponent is going to stay in, and unfortunately gets the Air Cutter. I was trying to CMP tie with the close combat onto a Volt Switch Fortress. Volt Switch Fortress and electric types in general are difficult for this team. After testing quite a few different Greninja teams, I think that the best Greninja teams are usually going to be the ones that are going to be ABA weak to electric. If you see electric types, it's going to be a difficult game, or in this case, a Volt Switch Fortress, but I don't think it's unwinnable. I'm going to make a payback. Payback, it's debuffed, so it's not going to take a knockout, but it will get the Fortress quite low. Fortress pivots out into the Primeape, and the fact that they got aggressive is very nice for me, as now Primeape hits a wall named Galarian Weezing. This Primeape has so much energy, though. Look at this. They're already at another Rage Fist, and they still have residual energy. I'm going to look to overfarm too, and unfortunately, I apparently can't count because I end up CMP dying there. So that's entirely my fault. I go down a shield that I shouldn't have had to use just because of a miscount, and I fire off Sludge. Sludge is going to land in the back. They have their own Corviknight, and this is going to be a very tricky game. However, I have Shadow Greninja, which means I am never out of a match. I fire off Hydro Cannon. That's going to land on the CMP tie, and that damage is just criminal. This is an Ultra League Corviknight. Ultra League Corviknight absorbs hits from everything. and Shadow Greninja is just absolutely shredding it. Air Cutter is going to land, Greninja farming up to the back-to-back Night Slashes, but I will go for the Hydro. If they shield, I'm expecting a snipe, so I will send in the Corviknight. They bring in the Primeape, and Corviknight gets the full sand attack down. I'm very low. They bring in their Corviknight. I do make the payback, though, on very low HP. Payback into the Corviknight is going to land. They actually CMP tied. I have a very high rank Corviknight, so they must have the rank 1 to lose CMP to me. In comes Weezing. Corviknight makes the last second Air Cutter, and I cannot afford to shield this. They have a Rock Tomb loaded in the back, and that will do more damage. In comes the Fortress, there's the Rock Tomb, I put up the shield, and the game all comes down to this. I'm so low on the Weezing. Will that Volt Switch knock me out? If so, I lose the game. But we survive on very low HP, even with the team very weak to Electric, going up against a Volt Switch Fortress. The Weezing refuses to get knocked out, KOing Fortress, and securing an improbable win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a disastrous lead, Shadow Greninja into Hydreigon. Hydreigon gonna be spamming out Brutal Swings left, right, and center, and unfortunately, if I'm not able to make a play for switch advantage, then this is gonna be a very tough game to win. And the fact that they chip with a Brutal Swing and then bring in their own Corviknight is a very smart play, because now I really can't make a play for switch advantage. Even though I have an energy lead, I've already lost quite a bit of health, and my opponent has successfully put me into double payback range. So, unfortunately, I can't win switch, but if I can potentially catch a payback onto my Greninja, then maybe we can find a way back into this game. So I farm up, try for the payback catch, but my opponent's not going to let that happen. They're going to bring back in Hydreigon, but the good news for me is Shadow Greninja hits so incredibly hard that even though I'm completely walled, Hydro Cannon absolutely destroys this Mon. I have to respect a Fly or a Dragon Pulse, but my opponent wisely goes for the Brutal Swing bait. I'm now one off the back-to-back Night Slashes. Shadow Greninja's pacing is just absolutely incredible. You pair that with the increased damage from being a Shadow, and my goodness, this Mon is an absolute terror. Brutal Swing lands, it does not knock out. Greninja hangs on very deep into the red HP to KO Hydreigon. Back in comes Corviknight. Corviknight not gonna risk a Hydro Cannon being reached, gonna fire off Air Cutter will KO, and they do get the boost. I bring in my Corviknight, I try and make the payback, but unfortunately I cannot get there. Their Corviknight makes the payback, that takes the knockout, and in comes Galarian Weezing. I need Weezing to try and close out this game for me, but unfortunately I can't really afford to shield the boosted Air Cutter. In the back, they have Grumpig, and I do end up losing this game. Even though I have Brutal Swing, which hits for super effective damage, I would need Brutal Swing to 2-shot to have a chance to win this game, and it simply does not. Add to that the fact that I'm getting deleted by these Psywaves. Grumpig is a very cool pick for my opponent, and it's going to win them this game. I'm not going to waste any more time, and I will concede the match. We've got a Battle of Shadows in the next match, Shadow Greninja into Shadow Toucannon. Shadow Toucannon is so glassy that I can probably win the 2 straight Night Slash. I'm not 100% sure of this fact, but I just assume because Toucannon is very, very frail. Toucannon fires off the Drill Peck. Importantly, since they didn't build up to the Beak Blast, I'm still going to be shielding it anyway, but as long as they're not Beak Blasting, then I'm pretty confident that I can just win the 2 straight Night Slash and I won't have to land a Hydro. Drill Peck is going to be shielded. My opponent makes a devastating catch and sneak of a full Volt Switch onto Ampharos. Shadow Greninja, oh my goodness, barely survived. Look at the health bar remaining on that Greninja. Greninja almost got fully sniped, but thank goodness I'm able to save my charge attack for later. Ampharos is fully walled off by Weezing. They're forced to go for the Trailblaze to ramp up their damage, and Sludge will be knocking them out. Opponent sends back in Toucannon. Toucannon has to respect the Sludge or they're getting KO'd as well. Sludge from the Weezing is going to take the knockout. In the back is Como-O, and unfortunately this was just an impossible game for my opponent. Como-O is just completely shut down by my backline. Corviknight destroys it, and obviously Weezing is going to be double resisting everything Como-O wants to throw. So there just really wasn't a chance for this poor Como-O in the back. I decided to send in Corviknight here, just in case they were going to try and fire off a surprise nuke like a Boom Burst or something like that, but they were not. They go for the Clanging Scales. We will get a farm down here, but not before they make one last second charge attack. Clanging Scales number 2. Como-O's damage output is pretty terrifying, but luckily, with good Dragon Resistances in the back, that really sets up Greninja for success. We get a great lead in the next match, Shadow Greninja and Corviknight. And again, the Shadow damage in this matchup is so impressive because Greninja just hits so incredibly hard as a Shadow. My opponent ends up CMP tying in a very bizarre play, and they actually shield up the Hydro Cannon. Air Cutter does not get the boost, and they send in Gastrodon. I bank a Hydro Cannon for later and send in Corviknight. Corviknight, more than happy to absorb Water Pulse after Water Pulse. They go for Water Pulse number 1. I know a Payback will not knock out, but I just need damage on this Pokemon. My Galarian Weezing will get destroyed by it, so I need to get rid of this Gastro as quick as I possibly can. Gastrodon will fire off another Water Pulse, and that's just not going to be a problem for me whatsoever. Gastrodon switches out into Credilli, and this is where things are going to get very, very difficult. I don't have a great answer to Credilli on this team. Credilli isn't super popular, but all of my Pokemon can at the very least do okay into it, but neither really wants to see it per se. So I will get a Sludge, but a debuff Sludge is really not going to do a lot of damage. I end up over farming to CMP-Tide to their Rock Tomb, as now I'm going to be double debuffed, but at the very least, I've done some damage onto this Credilli. Credilli fires off the Rock Tomb, I get aggressive, I pivot into the Greninja, and here, I think I've probably lost this game. If my opponent ends up letting this go and brings in the Gastrodon, Gastrodon should be able to farm me down, but my opponent ends up making an error. They prioritize health on that Credilli, they shield, then they pivot into Corviknight, and Corviknight just has no fast move pressure into this Greninja. Greninja gets a Night Slash into a Hydro Cannon, and just like that, 90% of a Corviknight is gone. They had so much HP on that Corviknight, and that would have been incredibly valuable, but unfortunately for them, they ended up kind of throwing away the Corviknight, and now the Corviknight really can't do much. I bring in my Corviknight into theirs. This should be Air Cutter range, so I fire off the Air Cutter lands, but no! The 1 HP survive from the Corviknight, and suddenly, this is where things get difficult. Shield comes up, in comes Gastrodon, Gastrodon trying to make it to a Body Slam, but before they can get there, I fire off the Payback. Payback is going to land. That's the end of Gastrodon, and in comes Credilli. Credilli, Acid is heavily resisted here. I don't think with the debuff I can go for the Air Cutter. I'm committing to the Payback. We get the Payback, and it all comes down to this. I know they're 1 HP. Do I have more than 1 HP on my Corviknight? Yes, I do, and we're able to secure that game. Shadow Greninja into Clefable in the next match. This is a pretty rough lead for Greninja. However, they don't have a resistance to water, which means I can get rid of half their health bar instantly with a Hydro Cannon. Actually, well more than half of their health bar. I'm going to try for a catch on a Corviknight, but my opponent shows great patience, holding on to their energy and sending in Jellicent. Now, Jellicent is not your typical answer to a Corviknight safe switch, as Corviknight has access to Payback, which will hit for massive super effective damage. So now, I just want to try and make a play for switch advantage. However, unlike most Fairy-type Pokemon, Switch Advantage won't really help me against the Clefable because Clefable has access to Meteor Mash, which will absolutely delete my Weezing. So even though I will get Switch Advantage out of this mid-game, I'm still in a pretty rough spot, to be honest, because the Clefable is going to be incredibly scary into both of my Pokemon. My opponent reveals in the back, they have Torterra, so they are just completely disrespecting Fire Flying types with this team. I'm able to land an Air Cutter, they send in the Clefable, and they will be able to snipe down a shield. They bait with the Meteor Mash. I need to send in Weezing, but this is going to be really tough. Weezing can't do any kind of meaningful damage to the Torterra, so if we want a chance to win this game, it's going to be on the back of Greninja. I fire off Brutal Swing here just to get a little bit of damage onto that Clefable. From here on out, I win or lose on the back of Shadow Greninja. Meteor Mash is going to be KOing Weezing. I send in Greninja, they pivot into Torterra, but my swap takes 0 turns because I got knocked out. Theirs takes 1. So I fire off the Night Slash, denying their sneak. I get the double up Night Slash to the Hydro Cannon, but unfortunately, I think the Mud Slap that snuck through is going to put me just too low. If I could survive 1 Fairy Wind, I could win this game because they're in 1 Water Shuriken range, but I'm simply too low. And unfortunately, we lose a heartbreaking game. Tricky lead in the next match, Greninja into Pangoro. I'm going to get a shield advantage and then dip, but it's my opponent that actually pivots out first. They try and catch a Hydro Cannon onto Tentacruel, but they end up catching a Night Slash bait. The fact that a Pangoro would consider switching out of a Greninja lead matchup just goes to show the pressure that Shadow Hydro Cannon puts on teams. The Shadow Hydro Cannon would do monster damage to that Pangoro, so Pangoro actually is forced to leave the field, otherwise it would have to go down a shield and then I could pivot out and send in the Corviknight. The second Scald does debuff my Corviknight, which is a little bit unfortunate. I go for the Air Cutter, I don't get the boost, but I needed that damage anyway to ensure that Payback would come close to KOing. Payback is going to land. They do get farmed down after, which is very good news for me. And then my guess is we'll be seeing that Pangoro re-hit the field. Pangoro, I don't think they can knock out with the Night Slash here. I do think they need the close combat. That's going to be the close combat. I send in Galarian Weezing. In the back, they have their own Corviknight. And let's go Shadow Greninja. After my opponent caught the Night Slash earlier in the game, I ended up rebanking the Hydro Cannon before switching, and that decision is what's going to win me this game because I'm so far ahead on energy compared to this Corviknight. Hydro Cannon would just about take the knockout. I go for the Night Slash bait. They call the Night Slash bait, but now they're just in brutal swing range, so this game is over. Night Slash number 2 is going to be no shielded. Opponent realizes there's no way out. Back in comes Pangoro, and that is game over. All in all, oh my goodness. After getting to watch that shoutcast of Shadow Greninja yesterday, I knew I had to try and get this Pokemon, and the grind was worth it. Greninja, or Froakie, I should say, is in the female water grunt. Unfortunately, it's one of 3 Pokemon that can be in the female water grunt. So I found 6 of that grunt, and unfortunately, I think I got 3 of the Krabby and then 2 of the Tentacruel. So I did get a bit unlucky with only getting 1 Froakie, but at the same time, I got very lucky that the 1 Froakie that I got was a really, really good IV. Shadow Greninja, it's just better. I don't think there's ever a reason to run the regular Greninja right now in the Ultra League or in the Ultra League Premier Cup. It picks up so many new incredible wins. The Hydro Cannons just do so much neutral damage across the board. I think in the Ultra League especially, there aren't really drawbacks to being the Shadow on Greninja. Because in the Ultra League compared to the Great League, everything is just quite a bit bulkier. So even a Pokemon like Greninja that is absurdly glassy in the Great League has a bit more bulk in Ultra. So when you're dropping 20% of your defense as a Shadow Pokemon, I didn't really end up missing the bulk of the regular Greninja at all. Granted, I'm not someone who ran a lot of the regular Greninja. I felt like there were other water types that were better. But man, the Shadow Greninja, it's so fun. It's so strong. It's a Pokemon that you can pair with a lot of different things and get wins. If I had a Volt Switch Fortress, that's the pairing that I would probably want to try the most, is pairing up Greninja with Fortress in the Ultra League Premier Cup. Unfortunately, I still don't have the Pineco XLs because they haven't had a Pineco event in absolute ages. But if you do end up getting a good IV Shadow Greninja and you have a Fortress built, you could definitely try that pairing as well. Because something like Greninja, Fortress, and Weezing would also probably work extremely well. I do really like Corviknight because Corviknight does offer a lot of neutral play. Obviously, if you see an Electric, it's going to be tough for the team, but even with an Ampharos and a Volt Switch Fortress, we were able to fight back and get very narrow wins against those Mons. So the Electric types are tough for this team, but I think they are potentially beatable. Across the 12 games that I played with this version of the team went 9-3, up to, I think, pretty close to 3,000 again, like 2970, 2960, something like that. So the team works pretty well, and man, I'm just in love with Shadow Greninja. What an incredibly fun Mon. Sometimes we have Shadow rotations where there aren't really any good new Mons, like there's just some that are okay, but man, the Shadow Greninja, I think once people have this Pokemon, I think we're going to be seeing it absolutely everywhere. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.